So, Mick, international break is over. Thank God. What did you make of it?
Yeah, well, it's good to see, I suppose, two former Irish stars, underage stars, doing so well. Pity they're doing it for the wrong country now with Grealish and Declan Rice. But yeah, it's difficult for Ireland, and a lot of people are kind of saying, bring back Mick McCarthy. We don't have the players, and it wasn't just going to happen that Stephen Kenny's going to come in and wave a magic wand. It's time for a culture change in Irish football, and I'm just thinking about the last couple of days, like the legacy of John Delaney, his lack of leadership, lack of investment in underage, and they just need to maybe sacrifice a campaign or something with Kenny and just let him try and change the culture of Irish football from the top. But at least we can watch this football. I was watching the Bulgaria game last night, and with a B team, possibly even a C team, they're trying to do the right things. And it's going to be maybe a painful transition, but we have to do this transition. It really has to happen.
I agree. The performances haven't even been all that bad. Obviously missing the striker again. Well, hopefully one of them can step up, and maybe Connolly when he gets back in. But yeah, Kenny hasn't really had his time together with the players at all. Definitely not with the whole squad. You just have to transition. Look, the Irish fans will be complaining if it was the other way around as well. If it was Mick, they'd be looking for Kenny. A lot of them, Kenny's in, they're looking for the old style again. So it's as you said, you have to start from the bottom or the top, I suppose, the top down, getting rid of John Delaney and changing the whole culture. Yeah, so we won't have any more. Yeah.
Even the international football at the minute, you have to question if it's even a viable option. It's you're taking players out of, there hasn't been that many cases of COVID, especially in the Premier League. And then coming and taking them out, you see Mo Salah now has tested positive, and Callum Robinson. You had the whole exercise with the Irish players on the plane, Connolly testing positive and then getting, it was a false negative. So the Premier League, I'd say, are pulling their hair out. The managers are anyway, because, they're working so hard for this protective bubble, and then, their players are leaving and going to play in friendlies and Nations League. Well, look, we know the Nations League isn't exactly probably glorified friendlies, really, and the competition is just getting established. But yeah, I mean, why not just hold off on the international games until maybe the summertime, a bit like they did with the Champions League last year? Have like a mini 3-week tournament. I know it's hard on the players and they suffer a bit from pre-season, but they needed to restructure football a little bit this year. They could have taken out the Carling Cup, but it's not the Carling Cup anymore. What's it called now?
The Carabao Cup.
Carabao Cup, yeah, League Cup, I suppose we'll call it. That could have been taken out. Free up a bit of time. Even look, you could even question the viability of the FA Cup. Given these moments, and I know the purists might give out a little bit like that, but I mean, what's happening now with players? You look at Liverpool's injury list, and we'll come to that in a little while. And the welfare of players is, it's really going to be extremely difficult going into the new year as well.
The club managers are going to be, as you said, pulling their hair out. You don't know who's going to come back with new cases, like even Tellez at United. Apparently, the Brazilian FA have said that he has tested positive, but it hasn't been clarified by United, and United need a left back with Luke Shaw out. It's just a big mess, and you don't know if any more people are going to carry it back into the squads. As you said, they're working hard on their bubbles, and then everything is just put back out there. So, yeah. Well, no more international football for 4 months.
Yeah, so it's fantastic. We can see the patriot in you now, Dave.
Absolutely. We'll get back onto the Premier League fixtures. We've got Saturday morning, Saturday 12:30, Newcastle at home to Chelsea. What way do you see this one going, Mick?
Yeah, well, look, we have Chelsea coming in now. Lampard has kind of, they've done quite well. He's improved. They've, a big win in the last game against Sheffield United, who were poor, but it's still 4 goals. With 70% possession in that game, 22 shots. So they've been dominating. We've seen Ziyech, really coming up in the last 2 or 3 games. Timo Werner is there. Pulisic, You have Mount and kind of Havertz then as options in behind as well. So, that big investment in the summer is paying off for them so far. But the only thing I was kind of looking at is I'm looking at who they have dropped points against and who they've beaten. Okay, so they've beaten Brighton, Palace, Burnley, and Sheffield United. All teams you'd expect them to beat. Okay, fair enough. But they've dropped points in a 3-3 draw with Southampton, who have been good. Okay, they drew 0-0 with a poor United team, or let's say an inconsistent United team at least, and lost 2-1 against Liverpool. And they also drew with West Brom. So, anytime they've faced a team maybe that has, would be kind of higher up the league or someone that might be a little bit more difficult for them, they've actually dropped points. So beating Brighton, Palace, Burnley and Sheffield United isn't a huge achievement here. Yeah. So, but they are progressing. It's too early in the season to kind of cast a full judgment on them. But, 5th place, 15 points. So, it's a very condensed league. But Newcastle, on the other hand, lost 2-0 to Southampton in their last game. They're heavily dependent on Wilson up front. He's the 6 goals from them. You have San Maximan in the middle as well in midfield. He supports him a bit. But if you're looking at this, you'd have to look for a Chelsea win here. Like if Chelsea want to be pushing up, it's a big weekend for Chelsea because they can pick up 3 points when you have Spurs, of course, who are playing City, and then you have Liverpool and Leicester. So, they can, gain something there. So I'd be going for a Chelsea win there, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and as you said, it'd be important to get the early points and put the pressure on the other teams around them as well. That are results Saturday. That one is Saturday at 12:30 anyway. Then moving on, there's only one 3:00 Saturday kickoff most weeks now, and this week it's Villa at home to Brighton.
Yeah, I think that's due to the international break, I think. So you have Villa here, Dean Smith up against Graham Potter. Look, Villa you've Grealish coming back in after having a great international break with England, all the good work of the Irish underage system coming through there. Then we have, but they had a fantastic win against Arsenal last time out, 3-0. Arsenal a bit unpredictable, it's hard to really judge where they are. But the one thing I see with Villa is maybe what kind of separates them out from some other teams in the league is the kind of goals spread around the team. You've Grealish is 4, Watkins is 6, Barkley is 2, McGinn, and even Tyrone Mings at the back is chipping in with 2 goals. And that's a good sign that there's plenty of goals around the team. They're not dependent on one person. Look, Villa will be a little bit inconsistent. They stayed up, I think, probably, if we think about last season and the goal line technology, that probably kept them up really in the end. But against Brighton here, Brighton are in big trouble. They need to start picking up points. The table at the bottom is starting to take a little bit of shape, okay? Because Brighton are in 16th. They have 6 points, but they're 4 points behind Leeds in 15th. So are we kind of starting to see that bottom 4 teams kind of falling into their own little relegation battle? 4 points is a lot at the bottom of the table. I know, we're only... we're not long into the season, but, maybe it's starting to take a little bit of shape. They normally say don't look at the league until after 10 games. Yeah. But if that gap starts to grow a bit, you can see Brighton will probably be in that dogfight.
Is there a chance that Brighton are going to be one of those teams that you say, oh, yeah, they play lovely football, they try to play good football, and then they lose 1-0? There's always a couple of those teams that you're like, maybe you just need to grind out the bad results,
Yeah, they're lacking a bit of a goal threat up front. They have Neil Mapai, but I think he had a bit of a fallout with Potter. But they're good at the back. I remember watching him against Spurs, and they have like Ben White at the back. And I think this guy, I don't think he'll be at Brighton next season. You're probably looking at him moving on somewhere. He was on loan at Leeds last season. Very good player now, excellent. Probably the Euros might come a little bit early for him now for England duty, but I think he's going to go into and become a good centre half. But I think on this one, on form, you'd have to look at Villa. Grealish, there's a lot of threat around. But with this season, as we've seen, it's very hard to kind of make any predictions. Team news hasn't really come out just yet at the moment. And I suppose injury news and COVID news. But you'd have to look at Villa here to get the win over Brighton.
Okay.
Narrow victory perhaps, but Villa.
Saturday evening then, we have at 5:30. Spurs are at home to City. This is probably a pretty big game, even as early on in the season as it is. They're going to kind of find out whereabouts they are. Spurs, I suppose, more so than City.
Yeah, I think this is a massive game for Spurs, to be honest. This is probably the acid test for them. They had, like, coming ahead of this, they have Chelsea, Arsenal, Palace, Liverpool, and Leicester until the 19th of December. So that's a serious run of 6 games when you throw the City game into the mix as well. Now, the only thing I would say about Spurs here, you've Kane and Son who are in excellent form. And to be honest, Spurs, I don't think Spurs really fear City. They've beaten them in Champions League. They've beaten them, Mourinho with half the team last season when Steven Bergwijn scored on his debut. They beat them 2-0. Now, I know they were very lucky that night, but, you can be sure Mourinho's going to have his players up for a game against Guardiola. And Spurs have a lot of confidence going in here. And I think they'll be looking to maybe prove a point and maybe try and push on. They had it last game for Spurs was a 1-0 win at West Brom. West Brom were kind of coming out and fighting for their manager there, Bilic, because there was rumours of him being sacked. And West Brom were very structured against Tottenham that day. They were good. Spurs have made probably, I think, the underrated signing of the season with the Danish chap in the middle, Højbjerg. Okay? Very he's given Spurs that bit of a kind of a safety that they have because they didn't really have that defensive type of midfielder before that. Winks is a passer. Sissoko is more of a kind of a transition player, and you might question why Sissoko is picked and why he gets picked for France. Is because Sissoko is excellent. He's an excellent engine, first of all, but he also is very good in transition, kind of coming back if a move breaks down. He's solid and he's kind of a bit of an unsung hero there and will be played a lot in the bigger games. So I fancy him to play. They've kind of settled their centre halves down a little bit as well. You have Alderweireld and Dyer are playing now a little bit more there. After the West Ham game, Sanchez hasn't really gotten a look in. I think that was maybe just getting Toby Alderweireld maybe back up to kind of full fitness. I expect Spurs to kind of maybe invite City onto them. And you will see Kane will drop deep and he'll be looking for Son and maybe Lucas Moura will start. Maybe Bale won't start now with this game. He might come on with 30 minutes to go. And Nola Mela and Dele Alli, of course, is he's just been removed from the squad. So, a lot of people are kind of questioning that. But I think it's part of a kind of a transition at Spurs that needs to be done. Moving across to Guardiola then, fresh news in that he's just signed a 2-year deal. And that will do nothing but add to the rumours that they're going to make a pitch for Messi, I suppose, next summer. But, Guardiola's going to have to do something now after signing this 2-year extension that he hasn't done before, and that's rebuild the team. Because you look at this team now, Aguero is 32. He's lost David Silva. And, a player that's left them and people haven't really spoken about, and I always thought he was an excellent player for them, and had a bit of a fallout with Guardiola was Leroy Sané, who was a real goal threat, and he was fast. He had that kind of tricky left foot. They drew 1-1 with Liverpool in the last game, and that game kind of petered out. It was fantastic, first half, but then both teams kind of ran out of gas. Now, the one thing I would say about City, they have strengthened with Ruben Dias at the back, so they're Dias and Laporte now. And I think they prioritised that last season, getting that kind of 2 good centre halves there. They have that now, I think.
And Diaz got a couple of goals as well during the week, didn't he?
Yeah. And Diaz is a good, he is he's made for the Premier League. He's a big physical player. Now, whether Spurs will try and get at them in the full-back region, Walker's definitely prone to, just kind of shutting off, and Roy Keane isn't his biggest fan either, so we saw that coming out a while ago. City will play high, and I think that's going to play into Mourinho's hands.
You would expect the typical Mourinho sit back, wouldn't you, in this and hit them on the break? It has it written all over it. Yeah, and
this is probably going to come back. Kevin De Bruyne has only scored 1 goal this season, so maybe he started a bit slow, but he could go out and score and be man of the match in this game. But Spurs at home, I think it's going to be. I think Spurs could, put another nail in Guardiola's coffin. I don't think that 2-year deal is a massively fantastic thing for City. I think Guardiola is such an intensive manager and he's so demanding of his players. I think he has a certain lifespan there. So this is going to be the longest stint he's had at any club.
You would expect to see huge spending next summer from City then. Like, as you said, they are going to have to rebuild, and you would imagine that when he was re-signing for another couple of years, that next year is going to be a huge one. As you said, the Messi one and whatever else he's going to need.
Yeah, but he's probably maybe going to try and get Messi in the summer, and if they do, but like, look, Messi's a fantastic player, but he's going to be another year older, like in the. The Premier League is the Premier League. And not that Messi couldn't come and be amazing, but, they need to be building for the future. And, like, City have had their issues with financial fair play as well. And I think UEFA are going to be looking out to try and, because the only reason City got off with that, without that ban the last time was because the nature of how the evidence was taken, because it was basically hacked. And it wasn't that they were proven innocent here. It was because of the nature of how the evidence was obtained. So, look, we could probably do a whole podcast on City, to be honest, and even probably Spurs as well. But I think Spurs might, I think Mourinho's going to have them motivated. I think Spurs are the perfect club for Mourinho because we have a lot of players there who, with respect to them, have never won anything. And they're hungry. And when Mourinho did well at Chelsea, he came into a Chelsea team that had just been kind of left by Mourinho. I know it's a long time ago now, and they'd won nothing. And he's probably there to try and push them on and just kind of put the rocket underneath them. And you can see the way he's pushed out Dele Alli.
Yeah.
And I think Spurs, I don't think they'll win the league, but I think everyone is kind of recognised.
That's when it works best with Mourinho as well, isn't it? When everybody he's there, he has a say in his squad, a real say in his squad, not like at United. And when they all buy in, it seems to be that he can just galvanise the team as a collective rather than the individuals. Yeah,
and look, people say Mourinho's an outdated manager. Maybe what's outdated of him is his people management in a way, or dealing with egos, or let's say or like the younger kind of snowflake generation, which he has probably with the likes of Pogba at United and and these guys. But I think
he did lose his assistant as well, didn't he? Who he had from Porto, and after the first year at United, and they reckon that he was a lot of the man management as well of Mourinho.
Yeah, and he got a guy in now, a young guy from I think he was at Lille, João Sacramento. He's the assistant now, and he's actually very highly rated. And if you think back even to the documentary, there seems to be a good rapport with the players. I know how much can we read into that, really, but there's a lot of good characters at Spurs as players. Like Kane, Hugo Lloris. There's not too much. Dele Alli was probably the most kind of the Instagram type generation player that was there, and
true.
He won't be there now much longer,
Yeah, so, so you reckon City will win that one anyway?
I'm going for Spurs, Dev. I think Spurs are going...
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, now look, maybe not, they're not going to... It mightn't be this perfect kind of football, but maybe similar to last season, but I think they might just maybe run over them a little bit around the midfield as well.
I agree. I think Son could cause huge problems to City, especially if they do play high. It could be one of those, well, not quite like the United game, I don't think, but
Well, Son has a great record against City. He scored, I think, 3 goals in 2 games against them in the Champions League. Was it the quarterfinal a couple of years ago? Yeah, so. I think, they might have a little bit too much for them, to be honest. Okay,
well, that's Saturday at 5:30, and it should be interesting to see the Mourinho show as well. He likes those Mourinho Guardiola duels, and I'm sure win, lose or draw, he'll try grab a few headlines and afterwards.
Yeah.
So that's a great Saturday, and it only gets better, especially after 2 full weeks of international football. We've got another game, United West Brom at 8 o'clock on Saturday night as well.
I mean, here we have a team, that are managers under pressure. The players aren't really putting it in, and then we have West Brom as well. So let's have a look at what we have here. Okay, so let's get into the soap opera that is Manchester United. Okay, last game, 3-1 win at Everton. United, they have become a little bit more solid. They've Fred and McTominay kind of a solid base in the middle. The better shape to the team now that Pogba has kind of been, taken out of it. Whether he gets back in, maybe on the right. Martial is important because he gives him a bit of shape. After he was suspended, after his incident against Tottenham, they were kind of struggling a bit. But now that they have him at the front and they're playing a kind of a three behind him, they had Mata on the right, Fernandes, and they had Rashford then on the left in their last game against Everton. They got 3 goals out of it, so it seemed to work. Probably look, the sooner or better they get rid of Pogba. I think it kind of has to happen now. I know there's United fans out there, and I think they've just kind of become tired of him as well. And it might strengthen Solskjaer's position at the club as well if they can do that, because I remember you even said a couple of weeks ago that we need to stop. Why are we expecting things from Pogba? Well, if you get to that point, maybe it's the stage now when you have to look at, like, maybe he's not going to do it at United. So if they can do a deal, if they can bring in someone that kind of improves the squad with COVID and everything, we see there's going to be a different type of deals done in a lot of places. So if United are maybe looking at putting them back to Italy, maybe like a season-long loan deal or a type of a swap deal can be done. It could maybe be quite creative. I mean, Ronaldo's talking about wanting to get out of Juventus, supposedly. I mean, we could have this big homecoming. So
I don't know. I don't see it happening.
Well, maybe not Ronaldo coming back. But I think the important thing is, like, if we kind of get out of the speculation here, that taking Pogba out has actually made them more solid. Okay, when you have Fred and McTominay there.
Well, Fernandes has been so huge, and he's probably doing more than two have done in the past in that midfield. He's covering so much ground. Pogba is one of those players that, like you were talking about how he used to play at Juventus, kind of coming from the left and stuff, but I don't really see where he fits in the United team anymore, especially when he's not playing that well. He's not there to dictate. Fernandes is kind of doing that with the other two deep. So I don't think it should start. I don't think it should be up for question. He hasn't performed yet, so why would he be starting? Yeah,
it's true. I mean, that's the thing. It's just, if you take his price tag out of it, like his huge transfer fee, and you think, okay, if he's there you wouldn't be picking him on merit. You have Fred and McTominay who are really, like, McTominay, he mightn't be the fanciest player in the world. He mightn't, like, be the most exciting player, but he's solid, and you need that in your team. A bit like Højbjerg at Spurs, you need that solid base in your midfield, and that allows your attackers the freedom. Someone who will slot in for a fullback if they go forward. That disciplined player. That Pogba's never going to do it in a deeper role. So then you have to think, okay, if you're going to play him off the left, that means you have to move Rashford. And, like, Rashford is one of United's most effective players. Are you really going to do that to him?
Yeah, if you do that diamond, you're changing it up altogether, aren't you? But
yeah.
I think Cavani might get a shout out for a start this weekend. He scored and got sent off in the 2 different international games. I wouldn't be surprised to see Cavani start this weekend.
Yeah, I wonder what his fitness is like. And I didn't see the international. Was he in South America, or we're taking it like a big travel time coming back then?
Yeah. There were like, I mean, Uruguay. They won the first game, lost to Brazil in the second, and he was sent off in the second. I think Rashford is a bit of a doubt. He didn't join up with England. So, I could see Cavani starting.
Yeah, well, if they can get a tune out of Cavani, it's hard to judge because, first of all, he's been in France for a few years. So, like, that's almost like the Neverland of football, because you're not sure what the standard of a player is like coming out of there, because, when you're at PSG, you should be winning every game 3-0. But Cavani,
he's done it in the Champions League as well.
Yeah, and look, he was a super player like 4 or 5 years ago. And if they can get 70% of that, like, energy out of him, and, the way players look after themselves these days, we can still see Zlatan did a job for United a couple of years ago, and they're scoring goals now in Serie A. So, look, if they can get a little bit out of Cavani, the only thing is, like, you'd be worried about when you're signing players like Cavani, older strikers. it kind of hurts the development of your younger players coming in, your Mason Greenwoods and these players, you know.
Yeah, a different type of player though, isn't he? Greenwood is kind of, he hasn't been used straight down the middle yet, and Martial hasn't been good this year either. So like I think Martial has only scored one goal, and it was a penalty, if I'm right, this year.
The thing about Martial, he has all this potential. He's a bit of an enigma. Maybe
he's one of those. If you're a fan of United, watching him, it's like a nanny all over again. But then he scored 20 goals last year. You know.
No, he's a good player, and he can play, like, he can lead the line, and he can play in any of those three kind of attacking midfield roles behind. Very good player. It's probably just trying to get the best out of him, getting inside his head. Maybe kind of a bit like Nicholas and Elka, maybe, or something back in the day, you know.
Yeah, maybe
definitely
so.
A talent.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's surely going to be a United win against West Brom. Surely.
Yeah, I mean, everything says United are going to win this game. They're, you know, much better team, much better players. So a West Brom win, I think. You know?
And as I was saying,
look, everything says United are going to win. And I would predict that. But don't be surprised. It would be typical United under Solskjaer if they struggle in this game. Now, the one thing I would say, West Brom against Tottenham were very, very solid and very unlucky to lose to a late Harry Kane winner. You know, and Bilic is a good manager. He managed Croatia internationally. You know, he got them to later stages of international tournaments. You know, he's a good manager for West Brom to have. He's definitely a Premier League level manager. He was at West Ham. Look, just failing at West Ham doesn't mean you're a bad manager working for them. But United win, but may not be as easy as everyone thinks.
Okay. Well, we'll fly through. So that's Saturday. There's lots of football on then Saturday, and I can't express how great it is to have it back. Sunday then, 12 o'clock, early kickoff, Fulham versus Everton.
Yeah, so Scott Parker's still in a job for a while anyway. 17th in the table. You know, they got that good win a few weeks ago, but I mean, you'd have to say Everton probably to bounce back now. Like, Everton started well, but they've lost their last three games. They've lost 3-1 against United, 2-1 against Newcastle, and 2-0 versus Southampton. Now, they did have some injuries there and suspensions. So, you know, you'll have a couple of those players coming back, and you'd be expecting them to stop their rot against Fulham, and probably Calvert-Lewin to be the difference. And actually, he's 8 goals this season, I think, is going to happen.
Yeah, they'll have Richarlison back as well. He's just back off his ban, isn't he? And I think he got a goal for Brazil as well. So, yeah, Everton to beat Fulham.
I think so, yeah. Maybe you could skip that one, Dave. It mightn't be worth watching. If it's pay-per-view, I wouldn't be shelling out for it.
Okay, Sunday then, 2 o'clock, Sheffield United. Poor old Sheffield United at home to West Ham.
Yeah, second season syndrome, I think, for Sheffield United. And Chris Wilder, I think he's probably going to be the first to go. They're not going to be sticking no wins all season. They're bottom of the form table, 1 point, and they need to be starting to pick up points. You know, they're in big trouble. You know, he was lauded last year about this kind of very creative system he had, and it was very new and novel, and managers didn't know how to set up against it. But like, a bit like sometimes when a striker comes up from the championship and he's difficult he has one good season. Managers and players kind of get used to, okay, now this is how we do this, and they're not as effective. So Wilder is under pressure, definitely. West Ham, who have had a good start to the season, but their last game was against Fulham, and they needed a very late goal from Souček to win 1-0. You know, it was 93rd minute, and there
was a Fulham missed penalty, so it could have been.
With the Panenka, with the Luke man, isn't it? Yeah, great penalty. But I think Antonio is still out, and without Antonio, they do lack that kind of cutting edge up front. They have Declan Rice, who makes them quite solid in the middle. And look, you'd have to be thinking West Ham would kind of get a win here again, but. I mean, Wilder, maybe the international break might be a good thing. Players to go away and to refresh. But they need to pick up points soon.
They need to get points very soon. If you get to 10 games played, 1 point, that's a long way back, isn't it? You know? You've only
and a lot of
games in a season.
Might be surprised that Wilder survived this international break, because it was this international break last year, actually, that Spurs got rid of Pochettino. So, you know, it would have been maybe a time to kind of to do business if they were going to do it. But I mean, who do they get in, I suppose, you know, that's the question. But yeah, you'd have to see West Ham to have enough to get over this.
Okay, then Sunday 4:30, Leeds United at home to Arsenal. Great start from Leeds, but if you look at the table now, we do understand the table isn't anything to look at yet. But yeah, Leeds have been falling behind after their great start.
Yeah, well, when you mentioned the table, they're 15th, okay? So, but first to 15th is 8 points separates it, okay? So it is quite tight, but like we said the other week when we watched Leeds against Leicester, they're a bit naive. You know, they don't really, you know, once they had Vardy kind of coming up against them and, you know, they just weren't really able for that intensity. Now, the only thing is, Arsenal haven't really been that consistent either. And I mean, looking at the teams that Arsenal have beaten, they've beaten Fulham, West Ham, Sheffield United, and Man United. So 4 poor sides. So when we're looking at it now, we need to think, okay, how good are Arsenal? How good is Arteta? We don't really know yet. This season as well. Like, just when we thought, like, you know, they were good against United, they were solid, tactically very good, they lost 3-0 to Villa at home. So maybe that kind of sums this season up. But
it sums Arsenal,
you know, yeah, well, it probably does sum Arsenal up, yeah. But, you know, I said it a couple of weeks ago as well, that Leeds are really missing, like, this guy Ben White, who's back at Brighton. He was on loan at Leeds last season. Yeah, he's an excellent centre half. He's you know, he's going to be pushing on. I think I wouldn't be surprised if the big club comes in for him. You know, they're just too naive, Leeds. But, you know, this could be a great game because I know they went at it in the Carling Cup or the FA Cup last year, and Leeds were maybe 2-0 up, and Arsenal ended up pegging them back. Do you know what? I'm going to go for a Leeds win here. I think Leeds will trouble them. I don't think Arsenal really have that cutting edge to maybe push them on. It'll be kind of, they'll let them play. Both teams will play, and I'd go for Leeds.
As you said a couple of weeks ago, any game that Leeds are involved in, you're going to expect goals both ways. Yeah.
This could be like a 2-2 draw, a 3-2, you know, something along those lines. So, yeah, definitely one to watch anyway. I think it'll be a good game.
Yeah, and it's a pity that there's no crowds this year. I'm sure Elland Road would make a huge difference to Leeds, you know, in the likes of Leeds in these home games, you know. It doesn't really matter anything this year.
Yeah, and especially Leeds coming back up, like, you know, I mean, that thing what they've waited for so long, like since they went down, I'm not sure how many years ago it is now, but it's definitely 12, 13 years, I think, since they went down almost. Maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so, I mean, Leeds coming back up, like, yeah, the home crowd would definitely make a huge difference to them. But, you know what, I'm going to go with Bielsa maybe for them to bounce back. It's like,
okay,
I think Arsenal will let them play, and I'd like to see Leeds win that game as well.
Your old pal Bielsa. I know you're a big fan. Right, we'll move along then anyway to Liverpool versus Leicester at 7:15 on Sunday. We're being absolutely spoiled with football this weekend. So yeah, Liverpool at home to Leicester should be a cracker, maybe game of the week.
Yeah, you're looking at that. Yeah, I mean, Leicester have been excellent. You know, they've 4 wins in the last 4 games and a narrow win over Wolves in their last game. You're looking at Liverpool, and their list of injuries is currently Salah, who has contracted COVID. He's out for 2 weeks. Joe Gomez, 6 months. Alexander-Arnold, 4 weeks. Henderson is also a doubt for the weekend. Fabinho, I think, just coming back from a hamstring is probably maybe 50-50. Van Dijk, of course, 6 months. Thiago is another kind of, you know, 50-50 for the weekend, I think. And Oxlade-Chamberlain, there's just no return on this guy. You know, they're not sure when he's going to come back. And, you know, that's he's a loss for them as well. So you're looking at this injury list. You're looking at kind of defensively a partnership with Phillips and Matip. And Matip, you know, he's a good player, but he's had his own injury troubles as well. Like, so he's not going to be able to do it, you know, 2 games in a week. So Milner's probably going to slot in at right back. And we can kind of see now that Liverpool maybe at the back are a little bit thin. And look, you could say any team lost this amount of players, you know, the squad would definitely be affected, you know, regardless of how deep your squad is. But Jota has been a good success for him. He's come in, he's contributed, he's kind of stepped up instead of Firmino. Because Firmino does a lot for the team, but still, when you're in a team that wins the league, you need to be contributing in at least in double figures. And Firmino, while he does so much, he still needs to be getting his goals. And okay, he's gotten, his contribution is massive, but at the end, you need to be converting that. Now, in the last game, he kind of tried to shoehorn the four of them in, against City. But with Salah being out, they'll probably change. They'll definitely go back to that three up front.
It just goes to show how important of a signing Jota was, especially with Salah out now, and what Jota has already done. Like, I mean, he offers so much. And I don't know if Salah has been their most important player this year as well. Is it such a big a thing? Like, if they had a lost Mane or someone like that, it's arguably Salah hasn't been as good this year.
Salah's a hard player to like because, look, he had a great season a couple of years ago and he scores goals, but he seems to be all the time kind of very much, and strikers have to be selfish. I get that, but he cuts in and he will, he's always, shoot. And he seems to be like that. The most important thing for him is to score his goals. He doesn't really seem to link up. There's often occasions when he has the opportunity to maybe slip in Robertson who cuts in or something and he takes on that shot. But look, he's still one of the most dangerous attacking players in the Premier League. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, like you said, I think Liverpool will be maybe transitioning. They'll have to change that front three, gradually over the next couple of years. And maybe Jota coming in is part of that kind of gradual transition as well. But don't be surprised to see them maybe invest in supposedly Liverpool operate with like 2 or 3 transfer windows in the future. This is their philosophy, that they identify a player and they want to get him. A bit like Van Dijk. When they didn't get Van Dijk from Southampton, they waited. They didn't panic buy and go and buy somebody else just to buy a centre half. They waited for Van Dijk and got the player they wanted. So that kind of tells me even that they mightn't push too hard for a centre half in January. They might just try and maybe get by with what they have and stick to it like the long-term plan rather than the short-term solutions.
They'll be facing Leicester. Their defence is definitely going to be tested. One of my favourite players in the league, Jamie Vardy, is going to relish this kind of game, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. But his wife is in court now up against Colleen Rooney, I see today on Sky News. So, hard times for the Vardys. But no, on a serious note, Leicester, I've had my, we were talking about Rodgers a couple of weeks ago, and he can be a little bit hard to listen to, but his teams play good football. You have to hand him that. Vardy's a massive player for them. And to be honest, if Leicester can win this game, okay, with Spurs playing City, that would actually give them a gap at the top, like by 4 points. I know it's early in the season, but to be clear by 4 points, if they could do it.
Yeah.
The only thing I was looking at what they have at the back at the moment. They have Evans, Fofana, and Christian Fuchs, the Austrian guy, and we're playing with 3 centre backs in their last game. And this tells me that both back lines are not fantastic. Evans, he's solid, but he's getting on. Christian Fuchs, to be honest, I didn't even know he was still at Leicester. And Fofana has been excellent, young player. But both backlines weakened. I still think Liverpool will do enough because they've been doing enough all season.
Yeah.
But don't be surprised to see goals in this. And maybe Vardy I think he's going to be licking his lips at this game. If Liverpool play high against Vardy, they're in trouble. And Harvey Barnes will be there as well, I guess.
You got Phillips and Matip. Matip up against Vardy, I know whom I'm picking. And then the young guy Phillips as well. So I think Leicester will win this. You're calling a Liverpool win?
At a push, Dave, to be honest.
Okay.
I'd back a draw only for anytime I pick a draw here, it always goes one way. So I try and stay away from draws. I try and pick one or the other. But even the guy Phillips, supposedly Liverpool were, happy enough to let him go to Bristol City during the summer. I was listening to Miguel Delaney on a podcast the other day, and he was talking about Phillips like that. He's he's a go and head it type of defender. And he played very well against West Ham because they were trying to play that to Haller, and he could just go attack it and head it out like. But if he's coming up against Vardy, he's not going to give him a minute on it. He's going to be buzzing around him. They have good players in like Tielemans, Maddison behind him who look to pick holes. You know what, Dave? You convinced me. I'm going to go for a Leicester win as well.
You probably you've jinxed it now. Right, well, we'll move on quickly. Monday, 2 games Monday, one at 5:30 on Monday. Burnley at home to Crystal Palace.
Yeah, so it's a visit to Turf Moor for Roy Hodgson. Great win for Palace last time out, 4-1 over Leeds. And I remember actually saying that they're too dependent on Wilf Zaha. Now, they've taken this guy in from QPR, which I forgot about last week, actually, and he was linked with some of the bigger clubs. Eze, they got him for 19.5 million from QPR. Now, very kind of glides across the ground, a big lad, as in like, he's tall, strong player, 14 goals last season, 8 assists. He kind of, and then I'm looking at kind of the other players they have around there. They have Jordan Ayew up front, who's a little bit underrated, dangerous player. They have Townsend, also kind of a good player on the break.
Okay.
Palace are dangerous. And
Mick, you were the one who said they were too dependent on Zaha, so you're on the other side of the argument now.
Nothing, Dave, we can change our minds here. Like, we have to admit, go in for further examination. But yeah, I think Eze gives him that balance though, and he's a good player. Look out for him at 19.5 million. He mightn't last too long at Palace, to be honest. He looks, he looks to have a big future in the game. And I think, I think I'm looking at Palace here against Burnley.
Yeah.
And
do you think Burnley are on borrowed time in their Premier League stint at this stage?
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, Sean Dyche needs to get out of there before he should have left in the summer, to be honest, because his reputation is dropping as quickly as Burnley are.
Yeah.
Maybe a while ago, if you had to say last season, if he had to walk away, maybe he would have got another job in the Premier League. If maybe a different world, something like an Everton job comes up or something, people say Sean Dyche, he's done a good job at Burnley. Look at him now since he's left, but he's stayed too long now, and I think his reputation is suffering. We've said this every week about Burnley. They spent 1 million in the summer. Yeah. They have, they have Pope in goals. They have Kevin Long, the Irish international at the back. And, Kevin, he's a good, honest player, actually, Long. He's not, solid enough defender. James Tarkowski. But up front, the total lack of pace, no plan B. They have the two kind of one-dimensional strikers twice up there,
Yeah. So a little bit like Sheffield United in that way with their strikers.
So look, it's a Palace win for me, but Burnley are a bit like Sheffield United. They have to start picking up points at some stage. So who knows? Maybe this is the week. But going on form and how Palace are playing, you have to look at a Palace win. There's nothing else we can really predict here.
Okay, Palace win then, which will be a good win away to Burnley. Monday then, to finish it up, Monday night, Wolves versus Southampton. I love watching Wolves play and I love watching Southampton play. So what do you think yourself?
This could be, to be honest, maybe this is going to be the game of the weekend, because they've two excellent managers.
Yeah, they've put on quite good games on Mondays so far.
Yeah, you're looking at Wolves have been excellent. Lost their last game to Leicester 1-0, which they were unlucky. They were in the game. They have some... They have Neves and Moutinho in the middle are just a joy to watch, the way they kind of can keep the ball, spray the ball around. Ruben Neves is an excellent player, really, really good player. Southampton, of course, have Hasenhüttl, another excellent manager. They probably won't be sticking around there for too long. They're missing Danny Ings still,
Yeah.
But you look at Hasenhüttl and how he's improved Ward-Prowse. Ward Prowse was kind of a nice player who was at Southampton, seemed to be there for a long time, but, kind of a bit like a Harry Winks type of a midfielder, just looks to be passing it sideways all the time. But Ward-Prowse is kind of a bit of an old-fashioned midfielder now. Watching him, he's actually box to box. He does a little bit of everything. Very dangerous on set pieces. And Wolves then, they have, as we said, Raul Jimenez up front, good striker. Maybe doesn't get the return he should. They have Neto, but they have a guy who plays a kind of number 10 role for Podex. And he's a very clever player. Kind of reminds me a bit of maybe an Ericsson type, maybe a little bit more kind of a bit more of a traditional 10 than Ericsson to a certain extent, but low center of gravity, spreads it well, kind of not blessed with pace, but a classy player, very classy player. And look, with this, I think I'll give Wolves the benefit of the home advantage. And yeah, I think Wolves might just edge this one, but expect a good game, definitely.
There's quite a lot of good games this weekend. Well, before the start, they look like good games. Yeah, it's great to have so much action back again. It looks like goals again this weekend, Mick. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Like, if you look at Wolves, but look, the way the game is gone with so many penalties now as well, like, you know, it seems to be goals are just going to be, you know, if there's not going to be a goal in the game, the one will come from a penalty, like, and it's just,
yeah.
And the way defenders are gone now as well, teams constantly trying to play a high line. But I tell you, if Guardiola plays a high line against Tottenham, and like Klopp, is Klopp going to play a high line against Vardy? Like, managers need to realize that they have to, you know, it's horses for courses as well. Like, if you play a high line against Vardy, you're in big trouble. But if you drop off, you know, where's he going to run into? And we spoke about this before. He was never really a big success with England, like, and he retired early from that, partly because he wasn't going to get past Harry Kane. But international teams against England set back and they defend on their edge of their 18-yard box, so there was nowhere for Vardy to run into.
Yeah. And
maybe it's kind of a pride thing with the likes of Klopp and Guardiola, and they stick to their principles. But, you know, this is what you need to do against Jamie Vardy. It's probably what you need to do against Spurs now as well. Okay. That you play that bit deeper, because you have Son is going to be running on. So, yeah, probably a lot of goals. Wolves and Southampton is going to be one for the purists, Daves. They're two of the top kind of form teams in the league as well. So, yeah, it's going to be a good weekend.
Great stuff. It's great to have it back anyway. And we will talk to you next week, Mick.
Yeah, let's pick it up next week, Dave. And yeah, we'll take it from there. Okay,
cheers.
Mind yourself.
Bye-bye.